This episode is brought to you by The Science of Scaling. And The Science of Scaling is a podcast that, honestly, you should check out.
Yeah, it's called The Science of Scaling, and it's all about how to scale a business successfully, whether it's how to find outside capital or what to look for in your very first sales hire.
It's a new show hosted by Mark Roberge. She's the best-selling author of The Sales Acceleration Formula. He's also a senior lecturer at Harvard Business School and the founding CRO of HubSpot.
One thing that Mark mentions in the show is whether your company is valued at $1 million, $10 million, $100 million, the failure rate is the same, which means we suck at scaling.
In each episode, you'll hear interviews with people like Kyle Parrish, the VP of Sales at Figma, and Kevin Egan, the head of sales at Atlassian.
I've checked out a few episodes of The Science of Scaling, and it's great. Like, for me, I run a company as a bootstrap company. We're not the kind of company that's raised capital, but even still, things like sales, that's super important, and it's the lifeblood of our company. So for me, it's definitely helpful to hear how other people have sort of, who have been there and done it before, how they're actually approaching scaling. So go on in your favorite podcast app, whatever it might be, and search for The Science of Scaling. That's The Science of Scaling. Check it out. I think you're really going to enjoy it. This episode of Rocketship.fm is sponsored by Industry, the Product Conference. This October, gather with hundreds of product managers and product leaders from all around the world for 2 days of keynote talks, challenging working sessions, interactive discussions, social events, and more. Or add a third day and take part in half-day workshops with some of today's top product management facilitators for workshops on leading your teams to innovation, product roadmaps, achieving product market fit, and more. This year's lineup may be the best yet, with keynote speakers including product legend Marty Kagan. He's the author of the book Inspired, which is considered by many to be the seminal book for product managers and product leaders. There's also product positioning expert and author of Obviously Awesome April Dunford, and product leaders from Figma, IDEO, Amplitude, and so many other places. Plus, if you use the code Rocketship, you'll save $100 off your pass. Visit industryconference.com/global for more details. Again, industryconference/global for more information, but pricing increases on the first of the month, so register soon to save.
So as many of you may know, I ventured out this year. I left my job as the chief product officer at Dribbble to start a brand new company, and that company is gigantic. No, really, that's the name. We're actually very small today. But we are the training institute of the future. And my goal is to help you master the new influential disciplines that are driving results within organizations. And we're starting with some absolutely incredible courses like product leadership taught by Ben Foster, the former CPO at Whoop, deconstructing leadership with Allison Go, formerly of Meta and Amazon. We have revolutionizing marketing with AI, which is taught by Marie Osipova, who is the chief marketing officer at Penny.ai, and an upcoming product management course, which is taught by my co-host, Mike Belcito, along with Anna Marie Clifton of Coinbase and Asana, and Victoria Kennedy, who worked at Axios and Huge, and is now running her own venture capital studio. It's not just video courses. We're combining video lectures with take-home assignments and exercises, and then small group mentorship to really help make this information indelible for you and to help level you up, and all at a cost that most companies' learning and development budget covers. So if you're interested, go to gigantic.is, that's gigantic.is, sign up for a course, and you can actually schedule a call with me, and I'll walk you through everything that you need to know. And if you enroll and let me know that you heard about this on Rocketship, I've got a special discount for you. So go to gigantic.is, sign up today, and start your journey upskilling your product, leadership, and marketing skills. I can't wait to see you there.
Welcome to the Rocketship podcast. I'm Michael Sacca.
I'm Joelle Steiniger.
And I'm Matt Goldman.
And we're having 20-minute talks with entrepreneurs teaching you how to launch your product into revenue.
Check out our book at howtobuildarocketship.com to reserve your launch discount and to download a free chapter.
Today we talked with Yashar, the founder of CrowdClock. He talks about his B2B style approach to what's really a marketplace app. Really interesting perspectives there. He also opens up with us about what drives him as an entrepreneur and a problem solver. Really nice chat with Yashar. You guys are going to dig it.
Welcome to the Rocketship podcast. We're here with Yashar from CrowdClock. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us here. Now, Yashar, this CrowdClock is not your first venture. As I understand, in 2005, you started another company. Why don't you kind of take us back there and tell us what you learned from your first venture?
Sure. So the first venture was actually called Videonary, and it was two of my friends who originally started it. And the reason why they started is because one of them had his grandmother passed away, and he was looking through the yellow pages and he didn't know which funeral service he should go with. So that brought him the idea of, there should be a better way of doing it. And that created Videonary. And Videonary was basically, we would go out, film small, medium-sized businesses, edit the video down to 60 seconds, and then the audience, whoever came to our site, they would see the video and get a feel, for what the place is like, and, the aesthetics, environment, is there music playing, etc.
So what happened with that? Did you exit? Did you sell it? What was kind of the end result of that?
The end result was, like many other companies in 2008 who weren't able to stay afloat, we had raised friends and family rounds, and we came to a point in 2008 where we were receiving a lot of promises from the Bay Area, in terms of capital investment. They fell through because of the housing crisis or for whatever other reasons there were, but yeah.
So what are you doing differently when approaching CrowdClock?
What I'm primarily doing different now is I am very aggressive in terms of partnering with other companies. That is the biggest thing that's different between CrowdClock and Videonary. At Videonary, we're very cautious in partnering with other companies, if ever. But now my whole approach is we should be able to partner with other companies that have seen successes and essentially, be able to give them something while they give us, a push.
Sure. So you have kind of the classic marketplace, the chicken and the egg problem. But I got really excited when you told me how you were approaching it. So why don't you kind of enlighten us on your sales strategy, on how you approached the CrowdClock marketplace?
Sure. So initially when we started CrowdClock, we were thinking about coming up with a smartphone app, first with iOS and then Android. But that did bring up the question of, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? And we decided to take a different approach. And that approach is we go out and we find companies that we can partner with. And by partnering, I mean that we allow them to white label our APIs, make the technology of being able to set instantaneous appointments between two components, the user and the business, part of their technology offering. And so we're basically saying, guys, here's the free stuff, you can implement it, and you can run away with it. The way that we create revenue there is every time an appointment is made, the business pays us. So we are a pay per service or pay per performance type of business. The other thing that we're doing differently is every single business that signs up with us, they can also put a widget or a WordPress plugin into their website. It takes less than 5 minutes to do that. So that's definitely the different approach, and we also have our app as well.
So with putting all the effort, at least in the beginning, on getting these companies to use the product and get it as part of their infrastructure, aside from letting them put a widget or a link or something on their own website, what are you doing to get the other half of the marketplace there and showing consumers that that's an option for them when they're making appointments at these places?
So what we're doing there, and if I understand your question or correctly, is for consumers who are already visiting, their favorite business, they go to the website, they can make an instantaneous appointment from their favorite website. Case in point, if you go to White Orchid Salon and Spa's website, you see a widget, you make an appointment directly from there. If it's the first time you're making an appointment, you actually do receive an email from CrowdClock, giving it information of, great, you made an appointment, with such and such person at such and such time. And we also include a link for them to download the app. So it becomes, we leverage our businesses to be the mouthpiece for CrowdClock, so to speak.
For the consumer, is all they ever see the website or the app? And are you trying to get them to discover new companies through the app? Or would they only be using it when a company that they already work with allows them to make an appointment through it?
Eventually, we'd like it where CrowdClock can become a discovery new businesses for users that download the app. But that's going to be ways down the road. And it would be a very costly endeavor for us to undertake to be able to educate, consumers to download the app and use it. So rather than take that approach, we simply go ahead and partner with companies. Like I said, they white label it. And if you usually go to, website XYZ and you find businesses there, the idea is you can make appointments there. And it doesn't have to even say CrowdClock. But every time the appointment is made, we still create revenue.
So when you white label, is the email that they're getting white labeled too? Or does it come from CrowdClock?
Both. Right now it comes from CrowdClock, but eventually down the road, upon demand and request from our partners, we will go ahead and white label that as well.
So how are you approaching the businesses that start to use CrowdClock in the first place? Because many of them, if it's a spa or a doctor's office or any business that takes appointments, I'm assuming many of them already have something in place. How are you approaching them and getting them to switch to your system?
So, first of all, you'd be surprised at how many businesses are still using pen and paper, which is surprising to people in our field since we're all about tech. But for those who are using technology, the majority of them are actually using Google Apps as part of their business suite. And with that comes Google Calendar. CrowdClock is not a calendar system by any means. So we actually go ahead and sync up with their existing calendar. In this case, it's Google Calendar and iCal, and we're working on Outlook as well. So when somebody signs up with us, they put all their appointments on Google Calendar, they do it as a manual process. But when they sync it up with CrowdClock, every appointment that they put in manually becomes a time slot that nobody else can take when they try to make the appointment either through their website or through CrowdClock, the app, or our website.
So do you help out with that initial content entry?
Yes. Initially, the way we're doing it right now is we set up a phone call, 10 to 15 minutes. We walk them through the process. But eventually, once we have a better idea of what the common questions and answers are, then we're going to create videos for our future businesses so they can look at those.
That's cool.
So CrowdClock could be used for any industry. You could integrate it into anyone who needs to make appointments. How are you picking the segments that you're going after initially to tackle to get the most growth?
Well, the way we're tackling which businesses or which verticals to go after first is basically which ones are the lowest hanging fruit. We started out going after physicians because one of our co-founders is a physician, as well as beauty salons and dentists. But as we've progressed, we started seeing that there's a lot of interest from real estate people, simply because there's approximately 5 million homes sold every month. And the average home buyer looks at 10 to 12 homes. So if our math is correct, that's, tens of millions of home viewings per month. And it's something that they need. So we're, right now when we talk about verticals, physicians, chiropractors, dentists, beauty salons, those are kind of what we're concentrating on, as well as real estate. But we've had other businesses come and approach us, like auto mechanics. We even had a print shop approach us. Which was very interesting. And we don't say no. If it makes sense for them to use it, why not? Mm-hmm. And they're also teaching us how they're going to be using it. And that's really cool for us.
This episode is supported by the AWS Insiders podcast. AWS Insiders is a fast-paced, entertaining, and insightful look behind the scenes of AWS and cloud computing. Hosts Raul Submaranian and Hillary Doyle dig into the current state and the future of AWS by talking with people and companies that know it best. It's a show that's full of opinions, takeaways, and untold stories about the challenges, innovations, and mind-blowing promise of cloud computing. I checked out AWS Insiders, and look, it is a fantastic show, and it's perfect for anyone in tech who's looking for some of those behind-the-scenes stories, for some reassurance that, yeah, things are a little nuts everywhere, and everyone is struggling with a lot of the same problems. The first episode of season 2 is all about filling the cloud talent gap, and it's an interesting discussion on what do we do to help to staff up internally. What are some of the challenges that companies are facing? Search for AWS Insiders in your podcast player. We'll also include a link in the show notes. Thank you to AWS Insiders for their support. This episode is brought to you by Miro. So when I was at Dribbble, over the 6 years, there was one tool that we would always use when we were doing cross-team collaboration. Whenever the collaboration started to get complex, we would bring in Miro. It made it incredibly easy to align stakeholders across regions and time zones, and definitely teams, with ease. And we were able to do all of that while being a completely remote team. It also has integrations into Jira, Azure, Rally, a lot of the tools that you're using already for product management and engineering. So you can import tasks from them as native cards, and it helps you see the big picture. It also helps stakeholders to understand what work needs to be done. It was incredibly valuable. And then they even have an estimation app that gives you a clear understanding of the work scope, lets you identify gaps, and then it has the ability for you to set clear expectations for delivery, especially when you're working across functions. So your first 3 Miro boards are free forever when you sign up today. Go to Miro.com/podcast. That's Miro.com/podcast.
So going back to pricing, how do you handle that with you're charging a low amount for appointments made? Do you just bill them after the fact? Is there a certain minimum? With credit card charges, you can't make money if you're billing single dollars.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's no good system out there that allows us for microtransactions. So what we've done is we customized an API from Stripe, which is the payment gateway that we use. And we charge them 20 cents, but we're actually not running it through Stripe until it reaches $10 minimum. So at the end of every month, if it's $10 or more, we run the credit card. If it's less than $10, then we run it the following month.
Interesting.
So you've recently wrote a post about raising money in San Diego, and you have a very interesting story about heading up to San Francisco.
Yes.
Finding an investor. Tell us a little bit about, if you're building in kind of a smaller market, what kind of advice do you have for those that sometimes get frustrated that we're not San Francisco?
My advice, first of all, it has to be a product that you are fully on board with. You have complete belief in it. And then you go out and validate that by getting, and I think Brand Cooper makes a really good point, you validate it by getting initial customers, finding out what it is that they like or dislike, and trying to prove it in a very small area. Once you've done that, I think you shouldn't be afraid to seek capital outside of your city. It doesn't matter if it's San Diego or a small town in Florida or Colorado or anywhere else. What's good about us here in San Diego is we're relatively close to Los Angeles. It's an hour and a half or 2 hours drive. The VC world there is budding, and that's a place that I would really recommend people to seek out capital from. And I would also, tell people, go to San Francisco, seek capital there. And if you have to move there, then you have to move there, because ultimately what's important to you? Is it your company or is it where you live? And if the answer is the second, then you shouldn't even be in the entrepreneur business.
Yeah. So speaking of that, what drives you as an entrepreneur? We just talked to TK, who wrote a blog post about it takes 3 years for validation, and this is kind of a long, slow road. So what drives you each day to continue doing and building?
What drives me is the same thing that's been driving me my whole life in every walk of life. If I see a problem, I want to find a solution. And that has always been my driving factor. It was the same thing at Vidionary. I saw the problem and I loved the solution that we were coming up with. With CrowdClock, the problem is people don't want to be put on hold. It's something we dislike. Every time I call my doctor at Scripps, I put through the phone, and until I finally get to my doctor, 5 minutes or 10 minutes may have gone by, and by the time they reach me back, I might be in a meeting. For businesses, it's all about margin optimization. How do they create more businesses, more customers to come in through the door without spending more money on a potential possibility that there might be more customers coming in? And so we believe that CrowdClock is that solution, where we bring down the cost of doing business while increasing revenues. And for regular everyday Joes, it's all about, I need an appointment now, or it might be in the case of, you might have an emergency. I need to see my physician right away. How do you do that? You call every single physician. That's the solution they have today. But with CrowdClock, you simply put in, I'm looking for a physician, and we find within a 10-mile radius exactly who's available in the next 5 to 6 hours. And you can make an appointment right away.
That's great.
Yeah, then you're at ease. Yeah.
So going back, how are you getting in touch with these companies? Are you cold calling? Are you going in and making appointments? Doctors are probably some of the hardest people to get a meeting with.
Absolutely. Doctors are definitely some of the hardest, along with dentists. They have what people call gatekeepers, and the gatekeepers are usually the receptionists. The way we're going about it is we're doing a two-tier approach. One is we do cold calling. We call them randomly, and we tell them, we're calling from CrowdClock. This is what we're doing. The other method is we partner with companies that already have doctors, for example, as customers. They might have dentists as customers, and so we get them through that way. The third way that we do it is in our app, in CrowdClock, the app, and also the website, the new version that's coming out in a month. Every business that's listed on Yelp is also listed on CrowdClock, and that's because we're utilizing their API. So if a consumer attempts to make an appointment with a business that's technically not on CrowdClock yet, we get notified immediately, and we call that business and tell them there's been X number of requests for making an appointment. By the way, here's how you can sign up to CrowdClock.
That's great. And is their API free?
Yes, but you do have to get permission from them, and luckily we got that permission.
Yeah, that's huge.
So how long have you been running CrowdClock, and what has the growth looked like so far?
We started CrowdClock in 2012, and we went through development hell many times, many iterations that we had to throw away, many different development phases. Initially we were going to do a native wrapper with HTML5 app in the middle. We threw that away. Then finally, in the last 8 and 9 months, we completely redid our infrastructure and the APIs. They're all based on PHP, and Zen framework, and then native coding. But our growth since we launched our app in about 2-3 weeks ago has been phenomenal. Through the partnerships, we now have nearly 700 providers in our system, and we're growing fairly rapidly. And so we're happy, but we want to grow faster.
So if you've got almost 700 in there and you launched, what did you say, 3 weeks ago?
Yeah.
You must have done a big pre-sales push.
Absolutely. You have to nurture those relationships from very early on. You have to go out, meet with companies, schmooze with them, explain to them what it is that you're trying to solve, and meet them halfway. What is it that they are getting out of it? And what they're getting out of it is they can now offer their customers the capability of instant appointment setting and keep track of it instead of just being a lead generator. And for us, we get to essentially partner with a company that has already done the sales, has already introduced their services to their respective business clients that join CrowdClock as well.
That's the sound of another sale on Shopify, and the moment another business dream becomes a reality. Because if you're selling online and you're not using Shopify, I don't know why you're making your life harder. Shopify is the commerce platform revolutionizing millions of businesses worldwide. Whether you're selling, rare kicks to the latest product course that you developed, Shopify simplifies selling online and in person so you can focus on successfully growing your business. Shopify covers every sales channel from an in-person POS to an all-in-one e-commerce platform. It even lets you sell on marketplaces like TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram so you can get closer to the sale. It's incredible. Packed with industry-leading tools ready to ignite your growth, Shopify gives you complete control over your business and your brand without having to learn any new skills. Plus, it's got 24/7 support, so someone's always there when you need it. We have been using Shopify on Dribbble since, honestly, before I got there, and that's over 6 years ago. So it's your turn to get serious about selling and try Shopify today. Sign up for a $1 per month trial at shopify.com/rocketship, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/rocketship to take your business to the next level today. That's shopify.com/rocketship.
So were you doing all of these pre-sales and relationship building and outreach all the way through your iterations of dev?
Yes, I would say definitely in the last 12 to 14 months, I've been doing that. I wish I could have done a little bit more, but you know, when you're wearing a lot of hats as a startup founder, you unfortunately can only do so much. So I hope to change that, you know, with more people coming on board.
Yeah, one of the big things that we talk about and kind of try to show people how we've done is talking to customers early, and it sounds like you've taken a very similar approach. What would you say, do you have any advice on people balancing between talking to customers, generating leads, and building the product, and how have you balanced that in the early stages?
I think the best way to do that is to be very militaristic in the sense of, and it's something that's very foreign to a lot of entrepreneurs because we tend to have ADD or ADHD and be all over the place. But I think it's very important to really map out your schedule, your daily schedule. What are the things you're going to do today and what are the things you're going to do tomorrow? So before you go to bed, in my case, I try to map out what are the most critical things that I need to attend to tomorrow. And if there are emails that I haven't attended to throughout the day, I attend to them right before I go to bed.
Okay.
Or while I'm in bed, actually.
Clearing out the...
Exactly.
Yeah.
So be patient. That's another thing. Patience is definitely a virtue because it's something you have to have or you're not going to be able to be successful, in my opinion, because when you have a startup, you have to go through a lot of phases that may not be as pleasant as you'd like.
I mean, you say that you're 100% committed to this.
Yes.
Assuming that you weren't early on, how many months would it have taken for you to be convinced that it had legs? Because a lot of people give up in the first couple months when it looks like things aren't going well, but a lot of times that's before anything has hit yet. So how long did it take for you to realize you were onto something? You know,
the initial idea, we started mapping out the idea, sometime in 2011, but became fully committed in 2012. And what caused me to become fully committed to it wasn't any one thing. It was more a factor of different things. Primarily, that I have faith in the vision that we have for CrowdClock. And the people that we had spoken to, did they like the idea? Did they like the wireframe designs that we had created? And just the concept. And doing research, finding out what the pain points that businesses were experiencing, I finally concluded, I either dive in full time and forego everything else, any vacation, any, leisure time, and just focus on this. And then luckily have a wife that's extremely patient and understanding. So that definitely helps if you're a married guy or gal.
Very cool. Well, so for anyone that wants to join you on this journey, where do they find you online?
They can find me on Twitter. I'm pretty active, or try to be as active as I can. My Twitter username is Yashar A, Yashara. Or they can always like us on Facebook. It's very easy. It's facebook.com/CrowdClock. Our Twitter channel is also CrowdClock, so it's @CrowdClock. Or they can email us, info@crowdclock.com.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Very well.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Rocketship podcast. If you haven't yet, pop open iTunes and subscribe to be notified of future episodes. We have some really great ones lined up.
And while you're there, leave us a review. We really appreciate each and every one of them.
Son, I told ya, got them bangs like Goya. Gone up them, got me jumping off the sofa. Hotter than a hot pocket out the devil microwave. Model this begging just to be a nigga. Excited for garments like a tailor-made. And when he see me, man, they redder than an Everglades. Every day, same ish, me getting paid. Waking up new, it's me getting. Used to take bottle back, waitress bring the bottle back. Now they see me shining and they looking like a Sour Patch. Catch a heart attack, Newport South Pack, never blow bunk raps. But these bunk raps sewn up, whoever thought I'd be the greatest growing up.
Hey, this is Mary Beth Lassiter. Are you craving a new podcast? I've got a recommendation. Check out Gravy, the James Beard award-winning podcast that shares stories of the changing American South, brought to you through the foods we eat. It's produced by the Southern Foodways Alliance and distributed by APT Podcast Studios. Listen to Gravy on your porch during happy hour to hear about the mystery of the missing Pappy Van Winkle bourbon. Don't miss out. Follow Gravy wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey guys, welcome to The Collective. I'm Brianne Helfrich, a 26-year-old bioethics PhD student and clothing brand CEO. Welcome to my podcast where we talk all things health and wellness, navigating your 20s, and becoming the best version of yourself. So, sit down, play that episode, and join the collective.